What happens when a self-made hotel CEO puts on a faded uniform, grabs a luggage cart, and finds out his staff haven't had a break in 6 hours? Isaiah Johnson had built his 16-location boutique hotel chain from scratch with nothing but a loan, a beat-up van, and a dream in his 20s. Now in his early 50s, he wore custom suits and ran the company from a high-rise in Denver. But lately, something felt off. Customer reviews had dipped at the Savannah location, one of their busiest hotels. Nothing major, just enough to make Isaiah uneasy. Words like rushed service, tired staff, and unpleasant check-in kept popping up. The regional director insisted it was a staffing issue. Post-COVID labor market, he'd said, brushing off concerns, but Isaiah wasn't the kind of man to accept surface answers. He hadn't met the staff there himself. Most of the newer hires had joined after the expansion, and with 16 locations and over 400 employees, it was impossible to know everyone personally anymore. Still, it was his name on the building. So he shaved his salt and pepper beard, dyed his hair a dull brown, and swapped his tailored clothes for a wrinkled white shirt and khakis. A thick pair of glasses completed the look. He applied for a temp bellhop position through a staffing agency the Savannah Hotel used for emergency coverage. Perfect cover. No one would question a temp. He told the agency his name was Ian Jacobs, close enough to his real name to respond naturally, but far enough to avoid suspicion. Isaiah arrived at the hotel Monday morning. The lobby was sleek, modern, with polished floors and wide windows. But the air felt tense, like everyone was walking on eggshells. He got his name tag Ian and was quickly handed a cart by the front desk girl, Juliet Rains, a 25-year-old with tired eyes and a kind smile. "You're the temp, bless." "We've been short-staffed for weeks," she said, tying her hair back. "Stick close to me for now, I'll show you the ropes." Within minutes, Isaiah was running luggage up and down floors. No training, no orientation, no time. Every hallway was filled with movement, but the energy was off. Too robotic. Too drained. At noon, he watched Juliet lean against the bell desk, breathing hard. "You okay?" he asked. She gave a tired laugh. "Haven't eaten since yesterday. Was supposed to get off at 11 last night. Stayed till 2. "We're drowning." "Why not take a break now?" Before she could answer, a voice snapped from across the lobby. "Juliet, no breaks right now, got it?" Isaiah turned and froze. A tall man in a navy suit, holding a clipboard and walking fast. Manager badge. His name tag read Trevor. He didn't even slow down as he barked his order. Juliet straightened instantly, pulling her posture tight. "Yes, Trevor." Isaiah stayed quiet, heart thudding. That wasn't just bad management, that was inhumane. Trevor walked past him without a glance. Isaiah wheeled the cart toward the elevator, fists clenched. That moment stayed with him all day. By 4 o'clock, he'd seen it happen 4 more times. A housekeeper named Maribel tried to grab water. Trevor told her to hydrate on her own time. A front desk worker, Andy, was denied his break because the phones were ringing. Even Juliet, who clearly ran things more than anyone else, never sat down once. During a lull at the bell desk, Isaiah leaned in. "Is that normal?" Juliet looked around, then spoke quietly. "If you want to keep your job, yeah." Later that evening, Isaiah helped an elderly couple to their room on the 5th floor. The husband tipped him $5. On the way back down, he saw Maribel cleaning the hallway vents while coughing into her elbow. "You all right?" he asked. She nodded too fast. "Yes, just dust." He offered her water from the bottle in his pocket. Her eyes welled up. "Gracias." "Sorry, I'm not supposed to talk." Isaiah's stomach turned. By the time his shift ended at 10, he was exhausted and angry. Not just at Trevor, but at himself for letting this happen. Back in his room, he sat on the edge of the bed, head in his hands. How many corners had been cut? How many people were hurting while he sat in board meetings worrying about expansion? He didn't sleep much that night. Tomorrow, he'd stay longer, and he'd be watching. Isaiah showed up the next morning 15 minutes early. The lobby was still dim, the front desk half lit, but Juliet was already there, typing with one hand while holding a phone with the other. She glanced up and nodded, eyes heavy but focused. "You're back," she said quietly, hanging up the line and reaching for a folder. "Wasn't sure you would be. Didn't plan on it," Isaiah replied, "but figured you could use the help." She didn't respond to that, just handed him a clipboard with room turnover lists and check-in notations. "Trevor's off today, it'll be quieter, at least for now." That caught Isaiah off guard. He hadn't considered what things looked like without Trevor controlling the rhythm of the floor. It made sense, though managers had to take days off. He tucked that thought away and accepted the clipboard. By 8, things were already picking up. A conference group had checked out, and a new wedding party was due in by noon. The housekeeping team was stretched thin, and Isaiah was sent to help transport linens from the basement supply room to the upper floors. The elevator was out on the east wing, so he took the service stairs 5 flights twice. Mid-morning, he found himself alone in the laundry area, waiting for a fresh load of towels to finish. That's when he heard voices echoing around the corner. "You're not folding them right. Look, edges like this. You've been here 2 weeks, how do you not know that?" It was a woman's voice, sharp, clipped. Isaiah stepped out slowly. A younger housekeeper, probably in her early 20s, stood frozen in front of a folding table. Her hands trembled slightly as she held a stack of fitted sheets. Across from her stood another woman mid-40s, name tag reading Danielle, housekeeping lead. She wasn't yelling, but the tone was forceful, condescending. The young woman mumbled something Isaiah couldn't hear. "What was that?" Danielle snapped. "Speak up, you're not on mute." Isaiah cleared his throat from the corner. "Sorry, I need linens for rooms 412 through 420. Danielle turned, annoyed but softened slightly at the sight of his uniform. "Fine, take the cart. But don't mess up the order. Front desk is already breathing down our necks." Isaiah nodded and wheeled the cart out. As he passed the younger housekeeper, their eyes met for a second. Her lip trembled, but she quickly looked away, back upstairs. Juliet waved him over as he returned the cart. "Quick favor," she said. "Can you help Andy at the curb? A shuttle just dropped a group and they're swamped." Isaiah headed outside. Andy, maybe 30, was directing guests while loading luggage into a trolley. He worked fast, but his breathing was shallow and sweat ran down his temple despite the cool morning. "Need a hand?" Isaiah asked, grabbing 2 bags. Andy didn't look at him. Just nodded, then muttered, "They sent you out here instead of a second valet, I guess." Andy didn't answer. Instead, he pushed the cart toward the doors, nearly colliding with a guest who stepped into the path unexpectedly. The guest, an older man in a suit, stumbled back, startled. "You people need to watch where you're going," he said, brushing off his coat. Andy opened his mouth, then closed it. Isaiah stepped forward. "Apologies, sir, busy curb." The man gave him a dismissive glance and walked off. Andy's face was tight. Inside, Isaiah followed him to the storage room behind the lobby. "Sorry about that," Isaiah said. Andy shook his head. "That guy's nothing. You should have seen what happened last week. One of the guests told Marable she should go back to cleaning her own country. She reported it. Trevor told her to drop it, said we can't upset paying customers." Isaiah's gut twisted. "HR didn't say anything?" Andy gave a dry laugh. "HR? You mean Emma? She's Trevor's cousin, works remotely. She forwards complaints to him." That night, Isaiah skipped dinner and stayed late, helping Juliet with check-in overflow. He watched her juggle 2 phones, 6 walk-ins, and a printer jam, all without missing a beat. At one point, a guest complained about the room smelling like bleach. Juliet apologized, offered a room change, and comped their breakfast, all while typing one-handed. "You ever think about quitting?" Isaiah asked quietly when the lobby cleared for a moment. She didn't answer right away. "My sister's in nursing school," she said finally. "I pay her rent, so no, not yet." The next morning, Danielle's voice echoed through the staff hallway again. "Why are you still here? You clocked out 10 minutes ago." "I'm not paying overtime for someone who folds like a toddler." Isaiah rounded the corner. The same young housekeeper was standing there, back straight, but her eyes were red. He stepped between them, keeping his tone even. She was helping me. I needed towels for the 4th floor. Danielle looked at him, annoyed. Then next time ask someone who knows what they're doing. You need to stop talking to people like that, Isaiah said. She stared at him. Excuse me, I said. Before he could finish, she stepped forward. Who do you think you are? You're a temp. I've been here 7 years. Don't come in here acting like you run things. Isaiah didn't break eye contact. You're right. I don't run things, but I know bullying when I see it. Danielle scoffed and walked off, muttering under her breath. The young housekeeper whispered, "Thank you," and rushed out the back door. Isaiah stood there for a long moment, then headed to the break room. He needed to think. Later that day, he noticed something strange, a clipboard near the back desk with a daily schedule. Next to each name was a symbol. Some people had stars, some had circles, others had nothing. Juliet passed by, so he asked casually, "What's this?" She glanced over, then looked away. Trevor's code. Stars mean you don't get sent home early. Circles means you're on call but probably won't get a full shift. Based on performance? No, based on who he likes. Isaiah stared at the paper. That night he sat in his room staring out the window. The city lights blurred through the glass. He'd seen enough. Tomorrow he would call the regional VP and schedule an emergency review. But before that, he had one more shift, and Trevor would be back. Isaiah arrived an hour earlier than scheduled. The lobby lights were still dim, the automatic doors hadn't even been unlocked to the public, and Juliet hadn't yet taken her place behind the desk. He waited behind the staff entrance until the assistant night manager opened the door without looking and muttered, "You're early." Good. He didn't respond. His mind was already ahead of the day. Trevor was back, and Isaiah had no intention of staying in the background. By 7:45, the lobby was humming. Juliet arrived with a tall coffee in one hand and a folder in the other. Her shoes squeaked slightly as she crossed the tile, but she didn't look up from her notes. Isaiah stayed out of her way, pretending to inventory the luggage carts near the bell desk. At just after 8, Trevor stepped out of the back office, dressed in the same navy suit. Clipboard in hand, Bluetooth earpiece in place. He didn't greet anyone. Just moved directly to the front desk, where he leaned across Juliet's workspace and began flipping through the reservation printouts without asking. "Why did we book 5 early check-ins for the 4th floor when housekeeping's behind?" he said, not lifting his eyes. Juliet calmly pushed her glasses up. "They're all Diamond members. I didn't want to deny them." "I didn't ask why you wanted to." "I asked why you did." Isaiah watched Juliet's jaw tighten, but she said nothing. Trevor moved on. By 9, the lobby filled with guests. Isaiah helped with luggage runs and observed. Trevor hovered constantly, correcting people mid-sentence, redirecting tasks without explanation, and standing just close enough to make everyone nervous without saying anything. He never carried anything, never offered help, just circled like he was waiting to catch someone failing. At 10:30, a guest approached the desk with a question about a room charge. Juliet handled it smoothly, but as soon as the guest walked away, Trevor leaned in. "You comped breakfast." The room smelled like mildew. "I checked the log. HVAC repairs were scheduled for that unit last week, but weren't completed. Next time, clear it with me first. We're not running a charity." Isaiah stepped closer, voice steady. "She handled it right." Trevor turned slightly, finally acknowledging him. "You're the temp, right?" "Ian, that's right. I don't recall asking for your opinion." Isaiah held his gaze. "You didn't, but you're getting it." Trevor straightened, clearly irritated. "You're not in a position. I've seen enough," Isaiah cut in. "Let's go to the back office." Now, Trevor's expression faltered for the first time. "Excuse me?" Isaiah stepped forward, took off his glasses, and reached into his pocket. He pulled out his wallet and set it on the counter, flipping it open to reveal his ID, Isaiah Johnson, CEO and founder. The entire lobby seemed to freeze. Juliet's eyes widened. Andy, standing near the service door with a clipboard, stopped mid-step. Even the concierge who had just entered from the side hallway dropped his pen. Trevor's mouth opened, but nothing came out. Isaiah's voice was firm. Office. Now, Trevor turned slowly and walked toward the back. Isaiah followed, closing the door behind them. The room was windowless, lined with file cabinets and a single desk. Trevor stood rigid, arms crossed. Isaiah didn't sit. I've been here for 4 days, working the same shifts your team does. I've seen you deny breaks, berate staff, ignore misconduct, and create a culture of fear. You've failed every standard I built this company on. Trevor's voice was tight. If there have been issues, they can be addressed through proper channels. Don't. I watched you ignore a racial harassment report. I saw how you treat the housekeepers. I saw your code system for shift preferences. And I saw you block people from taking legally mandated breaks. Trevor stiffened. Isaiah stepped closer. You're done. Effective immediately. You're relieved of your duties. Security will escort you out. You can't. I can. And I just did. Isaiah opened the door and motioned to the assistant night manager who had been standing near the hallway. Please escort Mr. Carter out of the building. Collect his badge and company phone. It was quiet as Trevor was led out. No one spoke. No one moved. Juliet stood frozen behind the desk, mouth slightly open. Isaiah walked to the center of the lobby and turned to face the staff. I'm Isaiah Johnson. I built this company with the belief that no one should be treated like they're disposable. I came here undercover because something didn't feel right, and I was right. What I saw here was unacceptable. He looked around. Juliet, Andy, Marable, Danielle, where is she? Juliet shook her head. She clocked out an hour ago. We'll speak tomorrow. But for now, I want everyone to take a proper break. On the clock, starting now. Go get water. Sit down. Breathe. No one moved at first. Then Juliet stepped out from behind the desk and walked slowly to the break room. Andy followed. One by one, the others did too. Isaiah stayed behind and sat on the edge of the bell desk. He pulled out his phone and called the regional VP. Emergency staffing adjustment. We need an interim general manager in Savannah. I'll send you a list of people I met here who are better qualified than the one I just removed. He ended the call and leaned back. 15 minutes later, Juliet came out, holding a sandwich and a bottle of water. She sat beside him on the edge of the desk, cautiously. You really the CEO? Isaiah nodded. You're different than I expected. I hope that's a good thing. She glanced toward the hallway where Andy and the others were gathered. What happens now? I fix what I broke. Starting with listening to the people who have been holding this place together. She looked down at her sandwich, then back at him. Can I ask something? Of course. Why did you come undercover? You could have just sent someone. Isaiah didn't answer right away. Because if I'd sent someone, I would have gotten a report. And reports don't show you what it's like to carry 5 suitcases up 5 flights because there aren't enough elevators. Or what it's like to be told you don't get a break because you're not liked. I needed to feel it myself. Juliet nodded slowly. I'm glad you did. Isaiah stood. Take the rest of the afternoon off, all of you, full pay, she blinked. But the guests, I'll cover the desk. You don't know the system. I'll figure it out, she laughed softly. You're serious? Yes, and tomorrow we start rebuilding this place together. She looked at him for a long moment, then stood and reached for her bag. As she walked away, she paused. You've got a reservation checking in at 2, VIP, like sparkling water and extra pillows. Isaiah nodded. Got it. She disappeared down the hallway. He stood alone in the lobby, watching the door swing shut behind her. Then he walked behind the desk, took a deep breath, and opened the check-in system. It was time to get to work. By the following morning, word had spread across the building. Staff were quieter than usual, but a different kind of quiet, not fear, but uncertainty. Isaiah arrived early again, dressed in the same uniform, not to keep up the act, but because it felt right. He didn't need a suit to be a leader, not today. Juliet greeted him with a cautious nod as she booted up the reservation system. Her voice was softer than usual, less brisk, more watchful. Regionals already called, said someone from HR's flying in. They'll be here this afternoon, Isaiah said, settling behind the desk. But we're not waiting for permission to fix what we can. Juliet didn't ask what that meant. She just handed him the desk log and stepped aside, observing quietly while he reviewed notes from the overnight shift. A few entries stood out. A guest needing a late checkout was denied without explanation, a housekeeper was marked absent after clocking in, and a maintenance issue was marked resolved, despite no technician being on duty. Isaiah flagged each one. At 10, he gathered the core staff in the back conference room. No managers, no department heads, just the people who actually kept the place running. Juliet sat to his left. Andy leaned against the wall near the door. Maribel arrived last, still in her uniform, hands lightly stained from cleaning chemicals. She took the far seat without a word. Isaiah stood at the front, a dry erase board behind him, though he didn't use it. "I know it's been a strange few days," he began. "But I want to be clear about something. I'm not here to make speeches. I'm here to listen." "That starts now." Juliet spoke first. "There's no backup for desk coverage. If I'm late, phones ring unanswered. If I'm sick, someone from housekeeping gets told to sit up front with no training. It's been that way for nearly 6 months." Andy folded his arms. "We don't have a second valet at all anymore. I've been covering curbside, bell service, and parking with no support. When I asked Trevor about hiring, he said we didn't have budget. But we've been sold out 4 weekends in a row." Isaiah nodded, then turned to Maribel. She hesitated, then spoke slowly. "My shift is supposed to end at 3, but I leave at 5, sometimes 6. I don't log the extra hours anymore." "Danielle said it makes the department look inefficient." Juliet looked down. Andy didn't. "She told me the same thing," he said. "Said clocking overtime makes the team look needy." Isaiah wrote nothing down. He just listened, one hand on the corner of the table. "I'll be direct," he said finally. "Danielle won't be returning. Neither will Trevor. HR is auditing their conduct and reviewing every complaint filed under their watch. If you experienced something that wasn't documented, now's the time to come forward." Juliet gave a faint nod. Maribel blinked once but didn't speak. Isaiah continued. "This place can't run on silence, not anymore. You deserve to do your jobs without fear. You've given more than what's been asked, and now it's our turn." Later that day, he met with the regional VP and HR director in a private office near the executive suites. The HR rep, a compact woman in her 40s with a no-nonsense tone, spread out a series of files across the table. Trevor's cousin, Emma, was logging complaints but never escalating them. She marked everything as addressed or resolved without follow-up. "We've suspended her pending investigation. There's enough for a formal ethics breach." Isaiah didn't hesitate. "She's done." The regional VP nodded. "We're assigning an interim general manager from Charleston. She has clean performance records and zero tolerance for manipulation." "She'll arrive tomorrow." "Good," Isaiah said, "but we're still exposed. There's no bench, no depth. We need to rebuild from the ground up." They spent the next hour reviewing staffing charts, budget allocations, and shift logs. By the end of the meeting, 3 approvals were locked in: an additional front desk associate, a second valet, and 2 part-time housekeeping staff to rotate weekend coverage. Nothing flashy, just practical. Back downstairs, Isaiah returned to the lobby. Juliet was working through a long check-in line, her voice calm but clipped. Isaiah walked behind the desk, stepped in beside her, and quietly opened a second terminal. She glanced at him. "You sure you remember how to check someone in?" He didn't look away from the screen. "No." "You'll correct me if I mess it up." She didn't smile, but the edge in her voice softened. At 4:30, he pulled Maribel aside near the staff hallway. "You're scheduled for tomorrow," she nodded. 7 to 3. "I want you to come in at 9, take the morning, paid." She looked confused. "Why?" "Because I want you to meet the new GM with the rest of the team, and I want you rested when you do." Still uncertain, she nodded again and turned back to the hallway. That evening, Isaiah stayed until closing. Not because he needed to. The interim GM had already confirmed her arrival, the staff changes were in motion, and the toxic leadership had been removed, but because the work wasn't done. Not yet. He helped Andy with the last luggage run, then joined Juliet in closing out the register. Neither spoke much until the last guest left. Juliet closed the drawer and leaned on the edge of the counter. "I called my sister today," she said. "Told her I might finally have a weekend off soon." Isaiah glanced at her. "You will?" She looked at him, eyes tired but steady. "You're staying involved, not just for this week. I'll be back every month, unannounced, different location each time, no one will know when. That's how it should have been from the start," she nodded. "Then maybe we've got a shot at holding onto the good ones." He looked around the lobby. The light was dimmer now, the noise gone, but the space felt different, not fixed, not yet but no longer broken. Juliet packed her bag and headed for the door. Isaiah followed her out, pausing just before the staff hallway. "Juliet," she turned. "You carried this place longer than anyone should have. That won't be forgotten." She didn't respond, just gave a short nod and disappeared down the corridor. Isaiah stepped outside into the cooling air, the night quiet except for the hum of streetlights. He took off the name tag that still read Ian and held it in his hand. He didn't need it anymore, but he wasn't discarding it either. It was a reminder of what happens when distance dulls vision, and of what can happen when you finally open your eyes.